Yes, guys, and welcome again to the channel. So today I'm quite excited to share this deck tech or deck list for the upcoming Dominaria United Standard, in which we're going to do a few of the standard decks that will be replaced or upgraded or changed into strategy that will adapt to the new cards and after the rotation that will matter in the format. So for this deck, we'll just going to go with the basic. It is the mono red DMU or the Dominaria United standard deck. In the setup, you can see here almost all of them are creatures with just basically 10 non-creature spells. But at the same time, we're going to go each on the creature choices as to why, and depending on the current spoilers that just arrived here in the as was released in several and official websites of Magic the Gathering. So we go with this setup. We have 13 creatures, 4 enchantments, 6 instants, and 21 lands for this build. But this will just adapt soon as we go along with the spoiler. So by card, we start with Bloodthirsty Adversary. So this will be the adapted mythic card from Mythic Hand that will going to be also in play with this deck, since it is a good 2-drop and at the same time a good mana sink to flashback any of your spells that has, for instance, your Lightning Strikes and Chemistry, and you can cast them again from your graveyard without paying this mana cost. So 2-drop on its thing, and also haste. Then we have a new card, the Defiler of Instinct. If we can check it out here, there. It's a 4 to cast 4/4 first strike, a Phyrexian Kavu. So this is a part of their cycle, as it was mentioned in the previous, and I think in my batch 2 of Dominaria United card previews. This is the red version, but this is more appropriate and efficient because of its ability of having red mostly composed of aggro and permanent spells. So in addition to cast these red permanent spells, you will pay 2 life, and those will cost less to cast if you pay this life this way. So for a mono red aggro deck, they don't really mind on how they would affect to pay life just to get more of their creatures on the board and going to attack for the win later on. And then as an added bonus, you will have this, that whenever you cast a red permanent spell, Defiler of Instinct can deal damage to any target. So basically it can deal extra damage to your opponent, to a random X1 creatures that can be champ blocker against your creatures, or you can trade for them. And having this free damage is very essential for a mono red aggro deck. So 3 copies of this, and make sure that we can balance it in this somehow in this setup. And then we have 1/2 of the artifact creatures from Kamigawa. We have Blizzard Blades in Ogre Headhelm, which will depend on the scenario if we're both, but both will be very I think very useful, as they can just be casted on their own on the 2-drop, and at the same time if they would need to reconfigure, then you can just basically pay for that reconfigure cost to add them to your more relevant creature in order to be more efficient. So another new card from here is the Phoenix Chick. That's a real name, but it is a 1 to cast haste flying. It is both very efficient in the setup. The only drawback is that it cannot block, and it's quite cheap for a 1/1. But the point here is that you can need to go early aggro, and the flying is the one way to have your cards deal extra damage. And the bonus is that whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, if this Phoenix Chick is in the graveyard, you can return it to the battlefield tap and attacking with some counter on it. And that is the bonus. It becomes 2/2, which is quite more efficient than the regular 1/1. And early on, the recursion effect is very ideal, as if they would be able to deal with it early, then you can just later on have it returned with just paying 2 red mana, as long as you're attacking with 3 or more creatures in the setup. Next, we have on this another new card. We'll just skip with the Rabbit Battery, as this is the same function with the other previous 2 for the reconfigure and also attacker in its own. we have 4 copies of Rada's Firebrand. As mentioned in a previous deck tech, I think that was for red-green, we already have the potential of her because she can basically have an defending creature can't block with power less than its power. So there are a few ways that in early on damage, opponents may have creatures that would be attempt to jump block or trade with your creature. So this is very relevant as they can just basically pop out that one creature for that your other creatures with lesser power can get in for more damage. So for copies, to make sure that we can have it on the 4th turn, and much more if you can go combo with the Command of Spaces Kazan, wherein you can have Rada's Firebrand becomes added with the additional personal counter as you cast this one. So 4 copies again for Stormseeker. This is basically the best 3-drop in the deck, which is also adapted from its previous build. It can also make another creature haste, which is also relevant, especially if you're curving with the Raidus and Defiler of Instincts. Next, we have one of Shivan Devastator. This is a good mana sink for the late game, so I've only added one to make sure that we can also maximize it in the late game for an Alpha Strike or part of a curve that is T-Dead. Then we have the new card Squee, the Obvious Monarch. So Squee is a 3 to cast 2/2. It can attack. It is a little Den of the Bugbear. It has haste that whenever it attacks, you can create a 1/1 red common creature tokens that stop and attacking. At the same time, you can cast it from your graveyard by paying 3 and exiling 4 other cards from your graveyard rather than paying its mana cost. It's also a good recursion effect in an early attacker that can develop your board, which can also satisfy your setup to have more creatures for your opponent to very hard to deal with. So 2 copies of that and 3 copies of Raiju, which is basically what it does, having modified creatures, your cards, and also putting counters on them as it attacks. So that's a total of 29 creatures, and partner with it is Commander Spaces Kakasan. This is a basic 1-drop for this set, which can also turn into Etching of Mukmano in the on a 3rd lore counter, and also a haste creature on its own. So another good attacker, extra damage, and adding counters on your other creature spells. So last but not the least, before we go with basic lines, are the 6 spot removals. So basically before sideboard, we just limit our spells as we focus more on having more creatures in their play. So Lightning Strike is the new addition. There's a reprint for 3 damage to any target, so make sure that we have 4 copies of this and 2 copies of Chemisphere. This is as an anti-creature or planeswalker damage, but the bonus that having to deal to damage to the permanent controller if you control a modified creature can be also relevant in situations that you would need to deal extra damage to your opponent. So 6 copies of this. We might need to add more in the sideboard or maybe upgrade if needed, depending on the metagame that we'll have to set up. So overall, I think this is just a look of what the mono red aggro will look like, and probably with a few adjustments when the new cards alive, we can just cut off a few of these. Maybe for the 2 drops, Adversary can be cut out to only 1, or maybe you can remove Ogre Headhelm for a more efficient creature that can replace its slot in the game. So for the deck stats, quick, we have just mono red. We have an average converted mana cost of 2.15 with almost 15 of mana cost of 2. We have 6 for 3 and 6 for 4. And the card types, this here, don't really matter. We only had spirits for the Soken-san to produce these tokens in the setup. So that's about it. I think this would be the look of the mono red aggro deck and standard Dominaria United. And I hope you like this video. If you do, just click like and subscribe for more Dominaria United info, standard deck techs, maybe for Pioneer also, and other related info. Thank you for checking this video, and until the next time.